This video is brought to you by the lovely sponsors below. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome, fellow masters. My name is Musaki from KeiKollections, and we get another ticket? Awesome! So as most of you may know, I did actually release a video last year, the last time that we had this free SR ticket come about, and I had a couple of recommendations that most of you liked. Some of you weren't too pleased. Anyway, it's been some time and there have been quite a few servers added to this list, so I thought I would take a look at my list to see if there'd be any changes. And what do you know, there is. So, once again, my name is Musaki from KeiKollections, and these are my SR picks for the free SR ticket, Redux. Number 5. For number 5, we have Nitocris. I saw quite a few people talk about Nitocris, and yes, while it did pay me not to put her on that previous list, this time I believe she is at least deserving of top 5 status. Her instant death mechanic, on top of the fact that she is an AoE arch farmer, and she has a battery skill that is 120% at max, it is absolutely insane. She can clear mobs of enemies like no tomorrow, and she can keep doing it for a relatively low cost. And the fact that she is not a limited or story-locked servant means more than likely you're going to have multiple copies of her at some point, especially if you're rolling repeatedly. Or if this is your first copy, that's fine. You can still just level up her own skills. Her own skills help her great. I already mentioned the Noble Phantasm battery, but the fact that she has a skill that increases her death chance, which feeds into her Noble Phantasm, is even better. Nitocris is a fantastic addition to this list, and I highly recommend her if you don't have her already. Number 4. Number 4 is a little bit different in comparison to last time. I did mention Helena and Caster Gilgamesh on that list, and you know what? I am putting them both here. That's why I didn't say top 5, I just said my SR picks. Helena and Caster Gilgamesh are both caster servants, but serving slightly different sides of the spectrum. Helena is an accelerator, and she basically supports her team in the best way possible, giving them bonuses to all their card types, giving them 20% Noble Phantasm charge just by existing with her skill is very good. She's very good to have on the field and helping you out. She pretty much is a mini waiver at this point. Caster Gilgamesh, on the other hand, rather be more in the fray. He does give people arts bonuses, which is very good, and also increases the critical drop rate that he has for his Noble Phantasm, which hits pretty hard, but also he has a charisma. So he is definitely ready to assist the team, but also get a little down and dirty himself. He is so good, that's why I actually put him on the previous list. But I think Helena also deserves that same, if not similar, praise. If you don't have either one of these wonderful servants, depending on your needs, I highly suggest Helena and Caster Gilgamesh for my number 4 spot. Number 3. Number 3 is, what do you know, going to go for another caster, this time Queen of Sheba. She is a fantastic offensive single target Arch Noble Phantasm servant. The amount of damage that she can pump out is actually pretty insane. With a 20 to 30% buster and arts up, on top of her fantastic Noble Phantasm gain, she can easily get her Noble Phantasm and make it hurt for her enemies. Granted, there are some 5-star options that outpace her, but for a 4-star, she hits like a truck. On steroids, Optimus Prime move over. So not only does she look fantastic, but she is fantastic. And she's also gonna probably balance your checkbook and look at you disapprovingly on how many times you spent sync course in this game. Way too much. But that aside, Sheba is definitely deserving of the number 3 spot. Number 2. Number 2 goes to not a caster this time, but a berserker. Berserker of El Dorado, that is. That is correct. A berserker who helps everyone. You may be seeing a little trend with the people on this list. Not only does she have a charisma skill that's actually 10 to 20% attack up for everybody, but also she has a buster up that's party-wide. And on top of that, a 50% damage up against Greek male heroes. I wonder if there's any Greek male heroes coming up in a certain event that's happening in April. I hope they don't have green hair. Anyway, this Amazon Queen is fantastic. On top of that golden rule, giving her debuff immunity and Noble Phantasm regen for 3 turns, and not just anything small, like 10% per turn for 3 turns is level 1. Level 10 is 20%. So over the course of 3 turns, she gets 60% Noble Phantasm. That's great on a Berserker. Yeah, a berserker. Someone that actually adds into her viability as a team player instead of just trying to hog all the glory for themselves. And even though she is a team player, her Noble Phantasm deals an absurd amount of damage. Single target, hitting the enemies, and she certainly is a boss slayer. She fits into most strategies, and heck, I'm using her right now to help me farm this event that we're currently in, the Da Vinci event. She is great. She is fantastic. It was an error not having her in my list last time, and I definitely corrected that this time round. Before we get into our number 1 pick, let's go ahead and go into the honorable mentions. We're going to start again with Gawain. Gawain Johnson. That's right. Gawain is still pretty good, and for the same reason I said before, he gets a buff that's going to make him fantastic as a saber. Get him now so you can future-proof yourself. He's definitely at least worth a mention. Lancer Arturia Alter. Aha, threw a curveball at you. The winner of the last video has actually been bumped down to an honorable mention. If you don't have an AoE Lancer, this Dark Knight will work just fine. A solid buster up skill and attack up skill to make her damage output on Noble Phantasms quite considerable. On top of that, her crits are outstanding. This is what Instinct should have been. Martha. Speaking of the Dark Knight, let's move on to Martha.
Why did you say that name?
No, not that one. A good off support used for her niche of removing one of the enemy's buff with a 3-turn defense down, and healing her party, and removing their debuffs. One of the few units in this game who actually do both. Her Noble Phantasm is also a defense down, so you can potentially use it to start an MP chain. It deals some heck damage. And for the newbies out there, I actually have a couple of picks ideally for you. So if you're just starting this game out and you're not sure who to pick or who would be helpful for you, these are what I recommend. Heracles. This is a solid first pick. I mentioned him in the previous video, but he's a single target berserker with high survivability. And you can't go wrong with Helena. So while she is on the list normally in the 4th spot, I will mention her again here. As I said before, she's an accelerator, as in she gives Noble Phantasm charge to everyone, and is an all-round support who can do work if the gacha hasn't blessed you with your very own waiver. Like many, many people. Nitocris. Yes, we're doubling up here. Nitocris is a very good AoE clear caster with a skill to give herself Noble Phantasm on demand. I'll mention it again. 120% battery skill at max. You don't even need to put her to 10. She can still get her Noble Phantasm on demand like that. That's absurd. And lastly, I'll go ahead and say Medea Lilly. She's literally a heal bot. Also can get her an MP on demand because, yeah, a button that says, hey, I charge my Noble Phantasm. Really good. She's going to help you out in the early game and make sure you stay alive to keep on trucking. Now, we're not done. You might have noticed a couple servers that haven't showed up in this list at all, and you might have your own preconceived notions who's number 1, but there's another thing that you must be aware of, and that is the double Skadi system. Because of the sheer amount of overwhelming support that Skadi will enable, I've decided that instead of infecting the main list of servers that you should get with this SR ticket, that she has her own section. DSS has their own lists. Lancelot Berserker, Adelante, and Parvati are the top 3 that I believe you need to get to be able to profitably MP loop with the double Skadi system. You can also use Marie Antoinette and Fran Berserker, but those 2 are going to need some extra help to get there. Still, Skadi enables these 5 servants to do the things you need to do and be able to 3-turn on their own, provided you level them up and level up their skills. Now, with all those extra lists that I squeezed into, what is the number 1 servant for the SR ticket? Well, number 1. Munenori Yagyu and Lancelot Saber. I literally could not pick because they are both very similar and very good. Critical arts, single target sabers that do absurd things. Let's go into Saber Lancelot first. As I said, single target saber with self-charge. He gives himself Noble Phantasm, 20% battery. He has Eternal Arms Mastery, which is the best star absorption skill in the game, and a star per turn skill. He gives himself his own stars and increases the amount of stars he can absorb. And on a saber, it really isn't that high. It's middling, but this pushes him way over the edge. All of these things I mentioned makes him an arch crit saber. Munenori Yagyu is very similar in this regard. He has his own gather rate for arch cards, and he increases his own arch card effectiveness, all for 1 turn. He has his own evade and increasing own attack, and he can increase his own MP gauge. So while he may not have the increase of the gauge per se, the fact that he can increase his star absorption, his art card effectiveness, and his charge is absurd. His star absorption is 100, which is great. He generates stars relatively high, 10.3, which is pretty good on hit. His double phantasm per hit is also pretty high, the highest being Hans Christian Andersen at well over 1 point, which is, again, sounds small, but absurd if you actually see him in action with crits. And on top of that, his Noble Phantasm is also just as equally absurd. He can do quite a lot of things in the right team, in similar teams to Lancelot, and they are so comparable in my opinion that it's either or. It just depends. If you have Munenori, go for Lancelot. If you have Lancelot, go for Munenori. If you have them both, or you have none of them, go for what you feel is best, what materials you need to get, because they are both fan-tucking-fastic. These 2 arch single target sabers are definitely the number 1 pick for your free SR ticket. Now, as you can see, I did a little bit of cheats on this list. That's why I didn't say as the top 5, because there's way more than 5 servers on this list. Either way, I really hope that this helped you out, and if it did, let me know in the comments below. I'd like to personally thank Daring Dan for helping me edit this video. Your help is really appreciated, and I'm so thankful for you. Now then, let me know what you decided to pick for your SR ticket. This ticket is coming on the 20th, so we are approaching fast. Let me know down in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. Anyhow, my name is Musaki from the Chaldea Gurus, and we are logging out. See ya.